We begin today's show with the massive explosions reported in Syria as the IDF says they struck multiple targets where infrastructure, weapons stockpiles, and military bases were left behind by Bashar al-Assad's military. All of this as Israel struck targets in Lebanon and Gaza this week as well. Here's what you need to know. Massive explosions were seen and felt near the cities of Damascus, Homs, and Hama in Syria overnight. The IDF confirmed they struck multiple military sites and capabilities that were located at Syrian bases of Hama and T4 and locations in the area of Damascus. The strikes targeted strategic infrastructure and weapons stockpiles left behind by former regime President Bashar al-Assad's military, according to the IDF, including runways, fuel depots, and radar systems. Military sources say the IDF killed several armed terrorists who fired on troops in the Tasil area of southern Syria Wednesday night. Although the IDF says it finished its operation in the area, it said that Israel will not allow a military threat to exist in Syria. Defense Minister Israel Katz said the strikes on Syrian soil targeted military infrastructure and were intended to serve as, quote, a warning for the future, a direct warning to the new Syrian leader Ahmad al-Sharaa. He also said, quote, Israel will not allow Syria to become a threat to its communities and security interests and across the Golan border. And as Israel battered parts of Syria overnight, they are also intensifying its military operations inside of Gaza, applying increased pressure on Hamas to secure the release of the hostages. Now, despite Israel's military force to squeeze a deal out of Hamas, the terror group says they will not respond to Israel's recent counter-proposal for a hostage release. ILTV's Ariala Lachiani reports.
The IDF has expanded their presence, reinforcing control over key areas such as the Netzarim and Philadelphia corridors. The IDF is also stepping up airstrikes and deploying additional divisions to southern Gaza, targeting Hamas strongholds. Israel maintains that these actions are essential to dismantling Hamas's military capabilities and forcing the terror group to return the remaining 59 hostages. IDF officials emphasize that every military maneuver is designed to weaken Hamas's infrastructure while minimizing risks to Israeli troops. Efforts to negotiate a ceasefire have stalled, with Hamas refusing to engage with Israel's latest proposal. The terror organization continues to demand a complete withdrawal of Israeli forces and an end to military operations, conditions that would allow it to regroup while keeping hostages in captivity. Meanwhile, Israeli forces have encircled Tel al-Sultan near Rafah, eliminating dozens of terrorists and uncovering weapons caches, further tightening the noose around Hamas's remaining strongholds.
הלילה ברצועת עזה העברנו הילוך. צה"ל תופס שטחים, מכה במחבלים, הורס את התשתיות, ואנחנו עושים דבר נוסף. אנחנו תופסים את ציר מורג. זאת תהיה הפילדלפי השנייה, ציר פילדלפי הנוסף. משום שאנחנו עכשיו מבטרים את הרצועה, ואנחנו מוסיפים את הלחץ צעד אחר צעד, כדי שיתנו לנו את חטופינו. וככל שלא ייתנו, כך הלחץ יגבר, עד שייתנו.
Despite international calls for de-escalation, Israel has reiterated that its operations will not stop until Hamas is dismantled and the hostages are home. With IDF troops advancing from both the north and south and key supply routes under Israeli control, the message is clear. The only way to end the war is for Hamas to surrender and release the captives.
Thank you, Ariella, for that report. And Hungarian officials make a major announcement today that they will be withdrawing from the International Criminal Court as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu arrives for a state visit. It's a move that comes as Netanyahu makes his first visit to a European country since the ICC issued an arrest warrant for him last year. ILTV's Devo Klein has more.
After landing in Hungary, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met with his Hungarian counterpart, Prime Minister Orban, in the Hungarian capital, Budapest. Netanyahu is set to stay in Hungary for 4 days, despite arrest warrants put out by the International Criminal Court. Hungary is one of the founding countries of the ICC and was an active member until now. During Netanyahu's visit, the Hungarian government announced they will be withdrawing from the ICC after not complying with ICC orders to arrest Netanyahu upon his arrival. Orban did no such thing and instead embraced the Israeli prime minister on Hungarian soil.
You stand with us at the EU. You stand with us at the UN. And you've just taken a bold and principled position on the ICC, and I thank you, Victor. This is not only important for us, it's important for all democracies. It's important to stand up to this corrupt organization that has equated a democracy that is challenged for its very existence by the most horrific terroristic powers on earth. But the ICC directs its actions against us. Fighting a just war with just means, and of course not against our tormentors, not really.
Netanyahu's visit to Hungary marks his second trip after the ICC sent out arrest warrants for the prime minister and his then defense minister Yoav Gallant, his first visit being to Israel's strongest ally, the United States.
Thank you, my friend Victor.
Mr. Prime Minister, thank you. Prime Ministers are...
And the ICC relies on its member states to make arrests and transfer suspects to The Hague, as it does not have its own law enforcement body. And if the withdrawal does go through, Hungary will become the only European Union country to not be part of the ICC. And joining us now to discuss this news and the war inside of Gaza that continues to expand is Professor Chuck Frelich, a senior fellow at the Institute for National Security Studies and a former deputy national security advisor in Israel. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
So let's start off discussing this fascinating news that is coming out of Hungary, where they've decided to leave the International Criminal Court right as Netanyahu arrives in the country for a visit. There is a strong pro-Israel sentiment in Hungary as well. Does a decision like this come as a surprise to you, and is it possible other European countries could follow lead?
Well, in Hungary's case, I wouldn't say that it's just an expression of their great warmth towards the Jewish people, to Israel specifically. It also has to do with Hungary's internal politics and the nature of the leadership in Hungary and its relations with the Israeli leadership today. I don't know that other European countries will. I hope that they will, especially the liberal democracies in Europe. I believe that they should be taking the lead. Unfortunately, they have not done so far. And we even saw a country like Germany say that as much as it supports Israel, it must uphold the authority of the International Criminal Court. I hope that they will change their approach.
Yeah, and moving over to the war in Gaza, I want to ask you, the ground offensive continues to expand there. And now Netanyahu is saying the IDF forces are establishing a new security corridor across southern Gaza that would essentially cut off the city of Rafah. Now, tell us, why does the IDF believe this is necessary, and why wasn't this step taken before, earlier on in the war?
You can make the case. There are two cases to be made here. And both actually are at least partly true. One is that Hamas has begun reconstituting since the ceasefire a couple of months ago, and we have to prevent that. And we also have to exert whatever pressures we can to get them to release the hostages. And we've seen at least some indications that maybe the pressure is having an effect on Hamas. The other case to be made is that actually this reflects the Prime Minister's political needs, that he needs an ongoing war in Gaza, at least at some level, as part of his battle to remain in office, to maintain his political standing, and from his point of view, to be reelected when the elections are held no later than November 26th, possibly earlier, as part of his judicial battle, to remain prime minister, as part of his attempts to deal with the judicial process underway against him. I think in this case, truth to both of these approaches.
Yeah, Israeli officials continue to say this military offensive is designed to squeeze and pressure Hamas into making a deal. But we just saw today Hamas is refusing to respond to Israel's counteroffer that they just put on the table to get half of the living hostages out. So is this resumed fighting paying off?
It's early to say. Like I said, there have also been some indications that it may be having a positive effect. We're in the midst of both sides doing what they can to strengthen their own position. And we'll see. It's not at all clear that a compromise can be reached here. Negotiations are always painful and difficult.
What will it take for Hamas to surrender in this war? I think that's a big question everybody wants to know. How far can they be pushed? What will be that moment where they decide to make that deal?
Well, if you're talking just about surrendering in quotes on the deal as opposed to an overall surrender, again, I don't know. I mean, the pressure is building up on them, and there's also socioeconomic pressure being applied to them. Israel has not agreed to the transfer of civilian foodstuffs and other civilian necessities for the last month. We saw some demonstrations in Gaza, which they seem to have put down in the meantime. We'll see. If things get very bad, then Hamas will have to make compromises.
Thanks so much for your perspective, Professor Chuck Freilich. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Israel is now facing a 17% tariff on goods imported to the United States, a decision made by the Trump administration that shocked Israeli economic officials. The news comes as Trump unveiled sweeping global tariffs. ILTV's Devo Klein has more.
My fellow Americans, this is Liberation Day. Waiting for a long time.
Yesterday, President Donald Trump announced that he would impose a 10% tariff on all imports of goods to the U.S.
In a few moments, I will sign a historic executive order instituting reciprocal tariffs on countries throughout the world. Reciprocal, that means they do it to us and we do it to them. Very simple. Can't get any simpler than that.
At the White House event, Trump announced a 25% tariff on all foreign automobiles, while also explaining that import tariffs will shift in accordance with the country of origin of the import, laying out a well-crafted chart to explain the numbers.
So, if you look at that, China, first row, China, 67%. That's tariffs charged to the USA, including currency manipulation and trade barriers. So 67%, I think you can, for the most part, see it. So 67%, so we're going to be charging a discounted reciprocal tariff of 34%. I think, in other words, they charge us, we charge them less. So how can anybody be upset? They will be, because we never charge anybody anything, but now we're going to charge.
Trump reiterated that this move to place reciprocal tariffs was to combat other non-tariff barriers put on U.S. goods and to strengthen in-house manufacturing, allowing for more jobs and boosting the economy. Trump encouraged other countries to comply and also blamed the existing tariffs for causing American economic harm. Trump signed the executive order, and so what does this mean for Israel? As seen on Trump's chart, Israel is placed among the U.S.'s biggest trading partners. After Wednesday, Israel receives a 17% tariff, as seen in the yellow column, with Trump claiming that Israel currently charges the U.S. 33% tariffs on imports. Israeli experts predict that following Trump's tariffs, Israel's economy stability may be shifted and foreign investors may be deterred, making Israeli companies less competitive in the market. This change could also lead to job losses, as Israel's economy would suffer from the newly imposed tariffs. Other nations are also reacting to Trump's order, calling it everything from wrong to shocking, or even, quote, "This is not America first, this is America alone." In a nutshell, Trump is seeking a decrease in imports, as the new tariffs impose higher prices for international goods, kickstarting American manufacturing to bypass international trade. Trump wants American products on American shelves, but what will happen to the prices of these items, and what will happen to the United States' international relations? Only time will tell.
Now, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee has advanced former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee's nomination to serve as the next U.S. ambassador to Israel. Wednesday's vote showed how polarized the committee actually is, as all Republican members supported the nomination while all Democrats opposed it. While it was widely expected that the nomination would advance with Republican backing, the confirmation process was delayed because of opposition from liberal Jewish groups and Democratic lawmakers. Huckabee's nomination now moves to the full Senate, but a vote has not been scheduled yet. And a Matzah bakery near the border of Gaza is making a comeback this Passover season after they suffered a tremendous financial blow last year because of the war. Here's the story of Emunah Matzah Bakery and why this Passover is so important to them this season.
This is where the magic starts.
The second the water touches the flour, time is ticking to get this shmura matzah made as it's passed from one hand to the next.
It weighs 15 kilos. It's roughly like 30 pounds. And the dancing that you can see helps him with lifting this because it is very heavy.
At Emunah Matzah Bakery in Netivot in the Gaza envelope, each shmura matzah is handmade from start to finish, each one completed in 18 minutes, a required Jewish law and custom to keep it kosher for Passover.
This is the end of the process. It makes it into what we would call like a hot dog.
Bakery owner Yedidia Harush walks us through the step-by-step process. He's waited more than a year to get this place back up and running normally.
The bakery was supposed to open on October 8th. Unfortunately, on October 7th, we went through one of Israel's hardest days in modern history. And together with the entire Gaza envelope and all the 55 loyal employees, went through horrors of that day.
It's hard to imagine this fast-paced bakery was shut down for nearly 2.5 months last year since this area was evacuated from the war. But as they tried to reset later in the season, Harush was called up to serve in the reserves in the IDF.
I had to take personal loans. I was in the middle of Khan Yunis while I had to take one of the last loans back in February. On March 1st, I came out of Gaza. To only find out that we didn't sell even one matzah.
The bakery lost $500,000 worth of sales last year and is hoping to recoup some of the loss this season as the process goes on.
These are the openers. They're opening the door and making it into what will look like a matzah. These are the professionals. Usually they also get paid the most. They are the finishers. They make the matzah into the round matzah that you see.
The matzah is then transferred onto a special paper on this stick into the oven, which is baked sometimes for only 10 seconds. Transferred onto this rack and touched to ensure it's not wet and moves on to its next stage.
It comes here, and here we make a special bracha, blessings, called hafrashat challah.
But first,
this is one of the secrets of the bakery, where the matzah dries out for 10 more minutes to take out all the moisture. So when you take a bite, you get that crunchy feeling. We decided this year that we want to have the highest kosher certificate. So any Jew, doesn't matter how specific they are about the kosher certificate, can eat it.
The bakery makes 3,000 matzahs in one day.
Our matzah is matzah with a mission, matzah with a purpose, where wheat grows in the Gaza envelope and water comes from Jerusalem, from the springs of Jerusalem. You get the perfect taste and also the connection to the roots and to the land of Israel. Being in Israel after 2,000 years of being in the diaspora and making this matzah as a free nation with an army, with a country, this is true freedom that we're very proud to deliver.
And Israel is cooking up a food tech revolution, serving steaks with no cow, no compromise, and a whole lot of innovation. ILTV's Mayan Hoffman was at the Israel Innovation Authority's Innovation on the Bar last month to learn more about it and to interview the CEO of Redefined Meat, a company recently named among the world's top green companies by Time magazine. Let's take a look.
The world is getting hotter and resources are shrinking. With 8 billion people to feed, the need for alternative protein sources has never been greater. We need food that's more efficient, sustainable, and secure. Israel is leading the charge. The country is home to more than 250 food tech startups. According to the Good Food Institute, Israel tops the global charts in plant-based protein investment and ranks second only to the US in overall alternative protein funding. And the market is booming. Meat substitutes are projected to hit $11 billion globally by 2030. Just last month, the Israel Innovation Authority gave Jerusalemites a taste of the future, literally. As part of its Innovation on the Bar series, it brought one of Israel's top food tech companies, Redefine Meat, to Mike's Place in the city center. Guests got to hear from the CEO, learn about the company's cutting-edge technology, and sample some of its surprisingly delicious products.
I stopped eating meat and I wanted to go back to eating meat. And I wanted to create a steak that I can eat that would be good for the planet and good for animals. We are building the world's biggest meat company that doesn't need to kill any animal. And that combines my passion of making great meat without killing animals with the opportunity to build a new company from Israel that will transform a very, very evil industry that is bad for the planet, bad for animals, and bad for people.
Food tech is a deep tech industry requiring heavy investment in both technology and infrastructure. That can make it difficult for private investors to see a clear return. While Ben Sheetreat believes that in 15 years, Redefine Meat will be a multi-billion-dollar company, not all investors have that kind of patience. That's where the Israel Innovation Authority stepped in, providing the company with its first funding to launch its R&D. Once Redefine Meat began scaling, selling, and generating revenue, it became much easier to attract additional investment. Moreover, Ben Sheetreat said Israel is more open to food innovation than many other countries around the world. For example, last year, Israel became the first country to grant regulatory approval for cultured beef. And perhaps more unexpectedly, the rabbis are on board too.
Israel also in food loves to try new things. And the Israeli consumer is more open to innovation. And of course, we have the benefit that you can eat a cheeseburger or you can eat a steak with Roquefort cheese for the first time and it's kosher.
Does everybody like it?
We're still trying to convince consumers that eating our product is better for them than eating animal meat. If they don't know it's not meat, they love it. When we tell them it's plant-based meat, they say, no, I'm a meat eater. So convincing people to make this leap of faith and to see that they will love it is much more difficult than we expected. It's more difficult than the technology.
ILTV decided to judge for itself, starting with one of Redefine Meat's steaks that Ben Sheetreat said was similar to picanha. It was juicy, rich, and deep in flavor.
Wow.
As you bite, you break down the fibers and you release more and more of this moisture from the blood and the richness from the fat. We broke down meat to components. We don't create a steak, we create separately muscle, fat, blood, and connective tissue. And then through additive manufacturing, what people sometimes refer to as 3D printing, we build this complex structure.
Ben Sheetreat says the meat cooks just like animal meat and is priced similarly to premium organic cuts, making it accessible to most consumers. It's now available in major grocery stores across Israel and in retailers throughout Europe.
If 10% of meat will move to new meat, it's equivalent to 50% of the people around the world going to an electric car. So the impact you achieve by substituting meat by a more sustainable alternative is the most important personal decision or personal impact you can have on the carbon footprint of the planet.
Wow, that looks delicious. Great report, Maya. Now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Clear skies are expected around most of the country tonight, with temperatures reaching lows of around 12 degrees Celsius or 55 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow we'll see sunny skies alongside steady temperatures, seeing highs of about 22 degrees Celsius or 72 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all of your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channel, subscribe to our newsletter, and explore our website, ILTV.tv. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Shosh Bedrosian. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great day.